Yes, sir.
When it was said before that the Jesuits were kicked out of Portugal, Spain, and France, were they kicked out by the political leaders or by the church authorities themselves?
Political leaders with the church authorities smirking in the background. Each one of those situations is slightly different, as you might imagine, because they're different countries. But there were struggles to take Spain, for example. Who will control the elite institutions of higher education? It had been the property of the Jesuits for a couple hundred years, but you had, I won't call him a reforming ruler, he wasn't an enlightened ruler, but he was a ruler who survived an assassination attempt when he was coming back from his mistress's place, and he was in a bad mood and very unhappy with whoever was up to this. And some of his advisors, who included religious leaders, said, well, probably the Jesuits, that's the kind of thing they would probably do. In France, it's a slightly different story because there's a strong secularizing culture going on, Voltaire and so on. There's also alienation between the ordinaries, the bishops of rural France, and the Jesuits. The Jesuits are famous for not doing what their local bishop has told them to do. And then there are dynastic considerations. You have a ruler who's pro-Jesuit, he dies, his daughter marries a guy, he becomes the Grand Duke, and the new Grand Duke is simply far less sympathetic and listening to other people. But I would say the best writing on this is by a man named Dale Van Clay, Kley. He's looked at France, Spain, and Italy and Portugal. But a short answer to your question, it was as much political as anything, and it had less to do with enlightenment versus the darkness of religion, although that's how the argument was made at the time. It was basically who gets the stuff. And there were many who wanted the power and the influence. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I have a question. Maybe you can provide us with information, because during the Soviet period there was also a very interesting episode with Jesuits, because they became very popular in Leningrad Seminary. So Jesuit Miguel Arranz was a professor, like a temporary professor at that seminary, Orthodox seminary. Because there was a very interesting episode in that period when he's still alive, Mikhailo Havrilov, maybe his name is, I don't remember exactly his name, but his surname is Havrilov. He is a Greek Catholic priest today in Ukraine. And he was a seminarian, Orthodox seminarian at that time in Leningrad. And Nicodim Rotov, Metropolitan Nicodim Rotov.
I hadn't mentioned him, but he's a big player in this.
Yeah. So he gave Jesuit spiritual exercises of Ignatius Loyola to that boy, young man, and then that man broke his ties with the Russian Orthodox Church and became an underground priest in Greek Catholic Church. So Jesuits were very popular in Orthodox seminary during the Soviet period in the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
How they became so popular in Orthodox seminary?
I think again, I'm already thinking of all the things I didn't mention in the last 52 minutes, and I apologize for that. But one of the things that I didn't mention were the spiritual exercises, which have great appeal across religious traditions, and which were recast by Nicodemus of the Holy Mountain, a Greek monk in the late 18th century, clearly derived from the Ignatian document, but became very, very popular in the Orthodox Aegean region. I think, first of all, Nicodemus, who is a very fascinating, if enigmatic figure during this period. He hints at many reforms. He has many contacts. He travels and obviously gets away with things too. He's allowed to do things. But what you describe is part of something larger, which I also didn't say much about, which is the infiltration of a number of academic settings by underground Jesuits. There is a Jesuit, and I've been told I shouldn't name him, so I won't, but he's a high particle physicist and a member of, earlier, the Soviet Academy of Sciences and now the Russian Academy of Sciences, and the guy is a Jesuit. And there aren't hundreds or anything like that. It's not like a big conspiracy, but clearly There were opportunities, there was intellectual curiosity, and as Jesuits got smarter about the Eastern tradition, many were drawn to those. I mean, there didn't used to be icons of Ignatius. At St. Louis University, when I worked there, as you walked into the library, there was this icon of Ignatius. I don't know what he would have made of it, 500 years later. But there's great attraction to the particular physicality and the beauty and the potential for developing theories. And also, to be fair, the Soviet Union was a tremendous, intriguing challenge. Jesuits, there's a Boy Scout, let's go see if we can do this, a rope bridge across the chasm, probably not a good idea, but let's go see if maybe we can do this. And this goes way back to the beginning, when I would say it's characteristic of, I've had Jesuits in class when I was in St. Louis, and I'd say, Jose, what are you going to do when you graduate? He says, well, I'm going to go on a trip, And you begin to get bits of what this trip was, and you realize it involved countries that the U.S. doesn't have relations with and things like that. And so there's a cultural thing here. There also, and you may well be more knowledgeable than I think Leningrad was a very different game from Moscow in these years. Okay.
It was very liberal.
Yeah, I mean, liberal is a relative term, but yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
For Russian Orthodox.
Yeah, I think that was true, and of course, this is not to overdraw a cliche, but it was built as a window on the West anyway. So there's the very deep acknowledgement of a potential Western connection. Yes, sir.
Which pope was it that banned the Jesuits, and how bad was the ban itself? What did he want to say through that?
Okay, this is Benedict XIV and Clement XIV. Excuse me. The document says that the Jesuits have been making trouble. They have created a disruption in Christendom. They are a source of dissension and scandal, and it's rather vague, but it had potential universal applicability. It was a papal brief. Now, that said, Frederick the Great, who is not a Catholic, probably not a Christian, he said that document's not going to be publicized in my realm because I need these blackbirds, and no, sorry, we're not going to run that. And Catherine the Great did the same thing, and other places delayed its announcement by quite a long period of time. The story of this pope is complicated. Depending on which historian you read, he was a well-meaning, if weak-willed person, or he was a schemer trying to get out of a very bad trap. The fact that he died under slightly strange circumstances within the year only added to the mystery in all this. But basically, the argument is there's scandal, there's division, and just un-Christian behavior going on here. The Jesuits were not the first religious order to be. You may recall a little problem with the Knights Templar in the Middle Ages, but this was an event that had been anticipated for years with great hope in many quarters. And to be fair, the ambassadors of the Bourbon powers, which at this point are Spain and France, in addition to other powers, were really leaning on the Pope. And this is also a period when the papacy is at almost its weakest stage. It will hit rock bottom when the subsequent pope dies under arrest in Napoleon's France, and the next pope has to be crowned with a papier-mâché tiara in Vienna, or in Venice, because the church is completely broke. But the church is very vulnerable at this time. And that really contributes to the willingness of this pope. In fact, when he was chosen, the major concern was, what will this guy do about the Jesuits? When the conclave met, this was the bigger question than what's going to happen in Brazil or something like this. But the document reads it's about scandal, it's about division, and it's about unbecoming behavior. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, sir.
My name's Jeffrey. I'm a chaplain. I actually got to spend a decade in Tübingen, the 80s. which is great fun. One of the things you had said about the different way that the Jesuits were received in the different countries, you had said that the rural nature of the Ukraine and other things meant that it was, these people were city slickers and coming in. You spent then later about Greece, and when they came in there, they were received differently. And yet there were cities down there, and there was a different intellectual atmosphere there. I'm wondering if that was the contributing factor.
I think it was, and I would go further and say there were communities in Greece that you and I wouldn't call a city, but they thought it was a city.
Right.
And that was what was important, is that they, okay, I live in Corinth, you know, maybe there's just 3,000 people in Corinth in the 18th century, whatever, it's not very prosperous, but it's Corinth, you know, and there's a memory of the polis and all this. I think that is a factor that's quite significant. Many, if not most of these Greek-bound Jesuits were from France, and France was historically, the King of France was the self-proclaimed protector of Christians in the Ottoman Empire. So that was better than being, I work for the Austrian Emperor, and we just took over your country, and by the way, I'll be working here. That's harder. But I think all these things come together. And I might mention there's still a mission in Athens run by Jesuits to this day. Yes, sir.
This will be the last question. We're at time.
The gentleman that had introduced you previously mentioned a very interesting thing, how you were trying for the nurturing of contemplation in universities. I hear that phrase very early, because usually when you hear of contemplation, you think of monastic orders.
Well, it could be, but I'm not a monk, but I try to do a bit of contemplative stuff. I'll try to make a short answer here. I was a junior faculty member at that moment in my life. And the message is, have you written your 4 articles? Otherwise, you're out the door. I see some wry nodding of heads here. That context for myself and for my colleagues who were in the same spot was anything but contemplative. Can I split this article into 2 articles? You know, maybe I'll get 2 out this year. That is not the way to do it. Okay? And yet, you know, what you should be asking yourself is, have I written anything that's worthy? Or maybe I need to go back and rewrite everything, and I need to reflect, has my teaching enlightened my writing? Has my writing enlightened my teaching? But no, you're under the gun. It's up or out in many academic settings. So, ironically, the Jesuits are not famous for their contemplative way of life compared to many Catholic religious orders, but nonetheless, they have produced some great spiritual documents. So, yes, I'm still for the contemplative life. I'm just sort of like Frank Sinatra, doing it my way. So.
Wow, what a splendid presentation from was clearly someone who stands in the great tradition of Anglican Friends of Eastern Christendom.
There are a few of us, yeah.
And I can think of half a dozen other topics that would love to have you come back and speak on. So I think you're going to have to consider this one of your regular stops, peregrinations hither and thither.
I'd be very happy to come back.
We'll love to have you whenever you're free, and
well, thank
give you
you.
an open platform to talk about anything.
Women Jesuits.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Will you be able to stay for a few minutes to chat with anyone else?
Yeah, I think so. Yes,
okay,
yes,
coffee and tea, help yourself.
that'd be lovely.
Including prayer. And,
Oh, yes, please. You will lead the prayer?